Hello, yes, it's Joe here for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A live from today. We're back in Studio 2. Just going to experiment with some studio lighting for a second. Not perfect, but I think we'll run with it. Hello, Germans fan. Great to have you with us, and nice that you've steamed it in there straight away. For those of you who are watching later, this is being recorded live on Wednesday afternoon, 3 o'clock Greek time. So if you are watching this at a later time, if you do comment, I won't be able to respond to those comments immediately. I know it sounds obvious, but I will get back to you and reply in the comments, but I won't actually be here anymore in Studio 2. So, yes, we're just going to start steaming through some questions. As ever, I've got some questions that are preloaded that people have been sending in. So I think I'm just going to check that the live chat is on. It seems to be on, although I've only got one message on there at the moment. So if you have sent a message, that would mean that it's not working correctly at this time. So right, I'll just try one more thing. No. All right. So let's crack on. Yeah, first question is coming from Scott, who's got in touch through Patreon. He says, this is a great first question, by the way. Besides screaming louder, how can those of us with older Hobies eke a bit more speed out and go faster? Okay, this is a great question. I think screaming louder is always going to be the key there. But all right, he says, polishing the holes, replacing the sails, or just to keep screaming. All right. The one that is going to have the greatest effect is replacing the sails, but that is also going to be possibly one of the most expensive things that you can do with your boat, short of actually replacing hulls. Replacing sails is certainly the most expensive thing that you can do, but replacing the sails is going to make your boat go significantly quicker, especially if you're sailing with sails which are like 30 years old or something, which I know with Hobie 16s, that is quite common to be sailing with boats that old or older, and they're still running sweet. But if you really want to get a bit more out of your boat, the sails are going to help. Not necessarily a new suit of sails as well. It could be maybe someone who races is selling a set of sails which are like 10 years old or something. They're probably going to be pretty crispy, and they're going to give you a bit more juice from your boat. So worth looking into. As with all boat stuff, keep an eye on all the secondhand marketplaces where you could find stuff for your boat, because if you're sailing a 30 or 40-year-old Hobie 16, 10-year-old sails or 10-year-old boat parts on your boat is going to feel brand new to you, whereas if somebody's racing on a brand new boat and it's not going to feel as new. Do you know what I'm saying? All right, I think everyone's tuning in now. Sorry, I had a bit of a do you want some technical stuff? All right, I tried setting up the stream, the live video on Safari on the Mac computer, and because my version of Safari isn't the latest, it didn't work. So I had to switch to Google Chrome. There we go. Interesting. Okay, Flups. Oh my God, Flups, Darups. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you with us. Germans fan says, is sail repair tape a permanent solution for old sails, or would you need to take them to a sailmaker even if they are very used? Okay, this is a good question actually on sail repair. When your sails get to a certain age, if you stitch the sail, like if you stitch some brand new Dacron to your old, let's say, sun-beaten Dacron, you're going to have a weak point where that join is. And at that weak point, that is the most likely spot where the sail is going to tear. Also, if it's being stitched, you're going to have a load of little holes in from the sewing machine. That could also weaken the sailcloth if you're using sails which are really old and where the material has degraded. So a lot of the time, the sail repair tape for the older sails is the way to go about it, because if you stick a patch on either side of the sail, make sure that that patch is quite a bit bigger than the actual area that needs to be repaired, and then that can definitely be a permanent repair. With these sort of sail repairs, if it's your main or your jib, what you want to be using is self-adhesive Dacron, which is called Insignia. It's called Insignia because this is the same material which is used for the sail insignias, like or your sail numbers. It's that sort of cloth. It's very strong. The glue on it is really good. And what I would generally do, let's draw a picture because we can. If I've got, here's a gash in my sail, I would basically find a round item such as like maybe a plate, the lid off a jar or something, and I would draw a circle on the self-adhesive Dacron, the Insignia stuff, to get a perfect circle. So you do a really tidy repair, and then the circle wants to be bigger than the gash, and then we'll stick that circle on both sides of the sail, and that will give that the best chance possible of lasting. And these sort of repairs, I've had repairs like that which have lasted a very long time. So don't be scared of sticking Insignia or self-adhesive Dacron to your sails. Before you stick anything on, the sail does, of course, need to be completely clean. Best way of cleaning it is with acetone. So, but clean both sides with acetone first and then stick the patch on, because if you put one side on and then acetone the other side, you're going to kill the glue on the other side. So there we go. That's what I think about sticky repairs. Very good and very handy. And once you've got it on, really give it a good rub. Get a bit of heat there, because that heat gets the glue working better. Okay, Chris in Texas. Hi. Howdy. Great to have you on board. Always nice. By the way, Chris, who is with us, is very good. If anybody has got any very specific Prindle questions, Chris is somewhat of a Prindle, I'm going to say expert. He knows Prindles better than I do. So direct any Prindle questions at Chris. All right, Germans fan. Yes, maybe some people are confused. Yeah, sorry about that. Setting up 2 live streams due to a technical hitch. Steve-O, great to have you on board, Steve-O. Down on, I believe, the south coast of England. Made it for the first one in a while. Great stuff. Matthew, hi. Nice. Willem, good day. Dinghy sailor here. It's all right. It's all just boats with sails. That's what we're talking about. Just happens that most of the boats that we talk about on Joyrider TV have got 2 hulls, but got nothing against the single-hulled boat or even the triple-hulled boat, as we've seen on Show Us You Can. Hello, Robin. Spent the last few evenings cleaning my hulls so I can wax them and stay on that speed stick. Yeah, so That's because Robin's already got the new sails, you see. So the next step is to get those hulls as perfect as possible. Of course, having more perfect hulls is going to make your boat go faster, but the biggest effect will come from the sails. And then what you can do is just use a bit of very gentle wet and dry, and just give, if you've got an older boat, I wouldn't do this with a new boat, just give your hulls a gentle wet sanding with wet and dry. Of course, what would it be, like the highest grade possible? So what would that be, like 1200 or something? Almost as smooth as a cloth, and that will just take out any imperfections on the hulls, and that might get you that extra bit. Of course, your rudders as well need to be absolutely perfect if you really want to get that little bit more out of your boat. Another thing for getting that bit more speed out of your boat, if when you're sailing, you're feeling like you're having to pull the rudders quite hard to keep her going in a straight line, that pull in the rudders is basically like acting like a brake. So if you are having to pull the rudders quite hard to keep the boat going straight, then you really need to have a look at your rudders, because that is like sailing with the brakes on, or like with having a bucket out of the back of your boat. Steve-O says Safari and Windows, how's that going? Yeah, okay, so I put a post on Facebook that I've had to install Windows on my Apple computer. This is just to run certain applications. So most of the time I don't have Windows running, but I'm using a thing called Parallels, which this is again a bit computer techie sort of stuff, but anyway, Parallels, which appears to be working really well. I've got 5 days left on my trial, and then I think it's about $70 or something to buy it, but it seems to work perfectly, and that means you can just launch your Mac as a Windows computer, so you've got Windows like it's another app that's running. Seems very nice. There we go. All right, Dad. Hello, great to have you with us. Rich waxes his hulls every launch. Now that is a dedicated sailor. Hello, Max in Rossenheim. Great to have you on board as always. Hobie Cat Days. Yo, Joe, hope you're well. Yeah, very good, thank you. We're still in a state of lockdown here, but I think it's either already become slightly less, or it's about to become slightly less on Monday, but we're still locked down. So I've had to come to Studio 2 in stealth mode today. Pierre, good morning from Quebec, Canada. Nice to have you with us, Pierre. Hope it's warming up a bit there, although maybe it's early days. Okay, Jeffrey. Hi, Jeffrey. Yes, I got your question earlier. It was on the list, but let's steam in. So Jeffrey says he wonders about which is the best trapeze harness and the mechanics and necessity of the quick release hook. This is a fine question. In fact, this might even be a question that we've looked at before. But there are so many good trapeze harnesses out there, and the only reason that I will recommend one over the others is because these other trapeze harness manufacturers haven't sent me their harnesses to test. So I can't say that without testing them myself. I can't actually say whether they're better or worse, the same. So there we are. There's a little poke to any trapeze harness makers out there who want to send me a trapeze harness for testing. But the trapeze harnesses that we use at Wildwind and the trapeze harnesses that I use personally are the Magic Marine Smart harness. The Smart harness is actually at the bottom. It's the lowest of the range of the Magic Marine harnesses. But what that gives you, it being lower down the range, is it makes it much less bulky. These the trapeze harnesses that are real top of the range, very expensive, it's like sailing in an armchair, but you pay for that comfort with slightly more bulk to the trapeze harness. Whereas the smart harness, it's a lot softer, but it being softer, it means it's not as bulky. Whereas the bulky ones, they're very stiff. Like you couldn't fold it, it's so stiff, but that does give you greater comfort. I would say if the only reason to actually go for the really expensive trapeze harness, the top of the range, is if you have some back problems, then, and you need all the support that you can get for your back, then well worth going up the range. But if you haven't got back problems and your money might be better spent perhaps upgrading your downhaul, maybe changing the rigging, maybe getting a new jib, something like that, rather than spending an extra $100 on each trapeze harness, then going for the smart harness, if it's Magic Marine at the bottom of the range, is very good. I've used one now for I think about 15 years, and I never have even considered changing brands since I started. The quick release on the spreader bar these days, well, I say these days, it was always essential, but even more essential now, because every harness that you buy, which is new, will come with a quick release on it. And I did say last week that I was going to bring a hook with me for this week, but I have forgotten to do that. I will actually make a video specific to the quick release trapeze hook mechanism on the Magic Marine harness. And I think I've got some quick release RWO hooks as well as a comparison there. So I'll put those in a separate video that I will upload in the next couple of days. But the quick release is essential. One of the more likely things that can happen, which could cause you to need it, is say you're sailing a Hobie 16 and you capsize sideways, you go sliding down the trampoline and your hook gets hooked either onto the trampoline lacing or onto the toe strap. To be able to pull your quick release might say, well, will save you a panicky moment there. And that panicky moment could, of course, lead to much more dire consequences. So if you've got an old trapeze harness, definitely consider upgrading your hook to a quick release, because it's like a lot of these things, you don't actually need it until you need it. And then when you need it, you really need it. Like I've never actually had to pull mine. So there you go. So yeah, I'll make a separate video on those hooks. Thanks for the question there, Jeffrey. Steve-O, he says, 1 week tomorrow, the FX1 comes home after 3 months stuck in lockdown on the East Coast in Essex. Oh my goodness. Steve-O's had a complete job done on his FX1. So I think everybody out there should be as excited as I am to be seeing Steve-O's FX1 on Show Us Your Cat coming soon. Great stuff. Mega. All right. Hobie Cat Days says, hope to get out soon for a blast. We're sending, oh, sorry, wrong accent. G'day, mate. Shrimp on the Barbie. Hope to get out soon for a blast. We're sending it down in Oz for you, mate. Oh, thanks. Very kind of you. And if you are really giving it some serious juice, take the GPS, get on the speed stick. I know I seem to be pushing the speed stick quite hard. You may be wondering why. I think it's just a really fun game that we can all play, getting on the speed stick. And the more people that get involved, the more fun it is. We've got Raf on board. Greetings to all from Sweden. All right, Dad says, what we need for cleaner for the hull. So I think he's sort of saying, what should we use to clean the hulls? what I've used, well, what I use a lot, I just cleaned another 16 the other day. I know, big news. Is I use an app. If your hulls have got a dirty brown stain just covering the whole thing, then what I use is a bathroom cleaner, which the active ingredient is muriatic. I think it's muriatic acid, which is pretty nasty stuff. And you just put that onto the hulls with a cloth, leave it for 10 minutes. That will dissolve all the brown stuff. And you then just wash it off with a hose pipe. And then it's like having a different boat afterwards. It is quite an amazing transformation. Then for any of those black marks that you get, like perhaps your hull on the inside has rubbed against the wheel on your launching trolley, or you've got some scratches on the outside of your hull, I use, what's it called? A cream cleaner, which is the stuff that used to be Jif. Then it was Sif, then it was Handy Andy, but it will take the shine off your hull, but it will get rid of those sort of black marks. And then there's all sorts of polish and things that you can use afterwards, or wax, but I can't actually name any products there. Okay, Hobie Cat Days in Australia says, just drilled out snapped screw in the 16 gudgeon. Have you ever had to do that? Yeah, we've had to do that in the past. That's a fun game, isn't it? I think getting these, what do you call them, extractor drill bits have been pretty handy for that. So like the same, if the head has just been worn away on a screw or a bolt, using those extractor drill bits. But I think when it gets really bad with those 16 gudgeon screws, you just have to take a very small drill bit, drill down the middle, and there you go. Yeah, not a nice job. So good luck to everyone with their screws in their gudgeons. Right, Chris says, we won't judge dinghy sailors very much. He's just messing around there. He says he's playing. All right, Rich says, wow, acetone. I use IPA on sails, concerned about compatibility. We've been using acetone at Wildwind for many, many years on spinnakers as well. And we've never seen any sort of degrading of the sailcloth from using that on the sails. And it does a really good job. The only IPA I actually know is from a brewery called Green King. It's a type of beer, but I'll have to check that out, because that is obviously some good stuff to use. Okay, Rich also says, by the way, great rudders video on your channel. For the Hobie, have you done a rebuild on a Nacra? These seem much stiffer. No, I've never actually had any dealings with any Nacras at all. I've only ever sailed a Nacra once, and that was a Nacra 6.0, and that was probably about getting on for 30 years ago now. So unfortunately, I'm not an expert in the Nacra rudder system. All right, Robin in Florida says, I recently splurged and bought 6-to-1 downhaul. Yeah, that really helped me with that new stiff intensity sail. Next on the list is to upgrade the old rudder hardware. They're singing pretty loud. Nice. Yeah, so the 6-to-1 downhaul for Hobie 16 sailors, I would say if you've got quite an old boat, the 6-to-1 downhaul is possibly one of the first upgrades you should think about using. But at the same time, do consider if your sails can take much more downhaul, or if you really crank on the 6-to-1 downhaul, is your sail going to blow out and become a two-piece sail? But very good choice. Robin's going to upgrade the rudder hardware. That's a great idea as well. They're singing pretty loudly. That singing could also be coming from the trailing edge of your rudder blade. If your rudder blade is coming to, this is exaggerated, of course. If this is the trailing edge of your rudder blade, if we're looking from the top or the bottom, if your rudder blade is coming to like a knife edge point on the trailing edge, firstly, you could hurt yourself if you touch the back edge of your rudder blade. But secondly, that thin knife edge on the back edge of the rudder, that will vibrate, and that vibrating on the back edge, that can cause that humming coming from that part of the boat. So what is generally seen as a common practice, this again is an exaggeration, is just to rub it down very lightly so that you've got a slightly squared off back edge on the rudder blade. And there, as you can see, there's nothing that's going to vibrate, causing those loud noises. The older rudder blades, now this is really going to test the skills here, have got a bit of a shape. That's pretty bad, but that's again an exaggeration, but they've got this slight bulbousness towards the tip. So if you've got an older rudder blades on your boat and you've got this kind of feeling that it goes narrow, then gets a bit wider, then that is going to cause some moaning as well coming from the back of the boat. So if you can take that bulbous bit off, just get a bit of lightweight sandpaper on a block and then just gently long smooth strokes is what we're looking for there. All right, Chris says, oh, back to the trapeze harness chat. Don't forget the Magic Pro Racing as well. I'm guessing that Chris uses a Magic Pro Racing. That'll be up the range a bit from the Smart Harness. So that will give you more support, be more comfortable. It'll be a bit more expensive, but there's a chance it'll be bulkier as well. So I haven't actually looked on the Magic Marine website for a few years, so maybe I should check it out and do some research as these questions do come in. Okay, German's fan says, oh, here we go. He's talking to Hobie Cat Days. He refitted his Hobie 16 this winter, had to drill out 5 out of 6 of those screws in the gudgeons. Some guy 20 years ago thought normal steel screws would be a good replacement. Ouch. All right. And we've got Michael on board. Hello, Michael. Great to have you with us. Hi, Joe and everyone else. Greetings from Chicago. Nice. All right. Rich says, I had a hard time getting a Magic Marine 3 months ago. Heard manufacturer changed. They are the best. Yeah, I think the latest I heard was all of the Magic Marine stuff comes from, it's from Holland, from a company called M Brands, because as well as Magic Marine, they also do a brand called Mystic, which make other water sports equipment, more windsurfing, kite surfing kind of equipment. But they're coming from, I can't remember the name of the town. It's near to Noordwijk in Holland. But check out M Brands Holland. Perhaps that would be a worthy Google search if you're having a hard time finding some Magic Marine. I'll have another look on my Amazon storefront as well and see if I can find some more Magic Marine harnesses on there and list those there as well. Okay, Hobie Cat Days says, lost the GoPro last week. Okay, that is a sad time. I'm no stranger to losing GoPros. I know how much that can burn. It's a double-edged sword of pain. The first edge is you've just lost a GoPro. That's going to cost a fair bit to replace. Second thing is you've just probably, if you lose your GoPro, it's definitely going to be the best footage that has ever been captured in the history of people putting cameras on boats. And you've lost that as well. So it is particularly painful. With the GPS, oh my goodness, it's a triple-edged sword, because also you just think you might have smashed 24 knots. Oh my goodness, that is a bad day. All right, Michael says we're going back to cleaning the holes. In the USA, Lysol toilet bowl cleaner, the original, not the Oxy version, is the best for getting off brown water or organic stains for holes. Nothing better out there. Wicked. That's good to know. So that would be a product to look at in America. This stuff with the muriatic acid that I'm using, it's just a product that we get here in Greece, and it only costs like €1 for enough to do like 4 holes. So it's very inexpensive. Okay, Rich says, the IPA, it's not beer. So we're not cleaning sails with beer. It's isopropyl alcohol. If you want to check the spelling on that, just go up to Rich's comment there in the comments. All right, another one. Shane says, if you're looking for a good brand of IPA, we use this in the Biopharma Eco Lab. Okay, you'll have to read that. Yeah, there's some science out there. All right, just going to take a short commercial break. Be back shortly. I'm going to have a drink as well. All right, so oh, there we go. Is Maurice? Great to have you on board, Maurice. He says, how did you end up in Greece sailing boats? Good question. I've actually, you're not going to believe this, this last week, I've actually written 3 articles written. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to be putting those on my website. And one of those articles is, how did I get to where I am now? And it's a really, it's an exciting read. It's a real page turner. And I've currently got my mother looking for photographs from when I was sailing, when I was young, pre-digital photographs age, which is very exciting. Yeah, but I ended up in Greece. Basically, I worked for Wildwind Sailing Holidays. And before I worked at Wildwind Sailing Holidays, who are based out here, I was working at Grafham Water in England, which is a reservoir, but it was run by possibly some of the best catamaran sailing educators in the UK at the time. So I really learnt my stuff from the guys there when I was working at Grafham. One of them was Brian Phipps, who is actually the guy who wrote the catamaran book. Maybe you've even got it on your bookshelf, but that's who I was working for back at Grafham. That was in the mid-90s that I was there. But I heard about this place in Greece where the rumours were true. There is such a thing as hot and windy. So I did everything I could to get out here. And once I got out here, I absolutely loved the place. The sailing was brilliant. It's a lovely place. And never looked back. And I've now been here for over 25 years. There we go. All right, Steve-O says, any tips I can pass on to a member of my club who is going to sail around the UK in a tornado this summer? Wow, that is a fantastic idea. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think the only tips that I could give would be so obvious that it would be insulting to say them, such as check your forecast, check the tide tables, that kind of thing. Check for as many safe places to land as possible. Always have 5 contingencies on any day. Where you're setting off from, have like, what if something breaks? Yeah, always consider, this goes for whether you're sailing around the whole of the UK or if you're just going for a sail, always consider, what if insert scenario happens. So the most common one would be, what if the mast falls down? How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to, if the mast falls down, is there actually a way we can put it back up? Possibly not. How are we going to get the boat to land if the mast falls down? Scenario number one. Scenario number two, what if we have some other sort of gear failure? What if we snap a rudder blade? What if the trapeze wire snaps and the crew goes overboard? There are a lot of things to consider. Yeah, that is what I would say. All right, Hobie Cat Days says, Hobie 16 Worlds at your joint? Question mark. No, not just yet. We actually hosted the Hobie 16 European Championships back in 2001. And I think I'm willing to throw it out there and say it is possibly the windiest European Championships there's ever been. If there's been a windier European Championships, I'll quite happily stand corrected. But it was so windy that some people didn't actually like it. And it was just, it's not always that windy here. Most days in the summer, we're getting about 25 knots. But on that particular week, just because you know how it is with the wind, you are rolling the dice to a certain degree, even in very reliable places for wind. But on that particular week, it got over 30 knots on several days of the event. All right, Rich says, got to wax after you acid wash, otherwise oxidation takes hold. Yeah, I heard that. And then I think if the oxidation takes hold, then they go brown very easily afterwards. Is that right? I'm not very scientific about this sort of stuff. Okay, Brett says, any suggestions for wetsuits or other cold weather gear for the nearly frozen water? Yeah, I think if it's really that cold, I would go for a dry suit. So if you don't know, perhaps you're from Florida and you've never even considered the concept of a dry suit. A dry suit is basically like a waterproof suit, but it's like completely waterproof. Water cannot penetrate that material. And then it's got latex seals that go around the wrists, around the neck. And then a lot of them have latex boots, which are molded in at the bottom. And that basically means you're in a, and then it has a completely dry zip as well. And then what that means is inside your dry suit, even if you fall in the water, you will not get wet. So the idea is that you put your layers on under the dry suit, and that way you can stay warm. Of course, you're going to need some gloves as well. But the dry suit, if you are not in the water all of the time, you're going to be a lot warmer than in any kind of wetsuit. But if you're going to, but for like the reason that the windsurfers wear wetsuits when it's really cold rather than a dry suit, firstly, is if you're going fast, a dry suit might flap a bit. Maybe you don't want that flapping. And secondly, if you're in the water a lot, then a good wetsuit is going to keep you really warm, because the way the wetsuit works is by taking that bit of water between the rubber and your skin, and then your body heat is warming that water up, which is keeping you warm. But if you're not going in the water very often, then it's not going to work quite as well as a dry suit. But the type of wetsuit that you want is called a steamer. They're generally, you'd want, I'd say, 5'4", which means in the main body and the upper legs would be 5 millimeters thick. And then on the arms and the lower legs, 4 millimeters. You could even go thicker, but that is what I would look for. And then the material that you want is called smooth skin, that's the type of wetsuit which is like, how would you describe that? Smooth on the outside, which doesn't let the wind through. That is what I would go for. All right. All right. Chris says hot and windy sounds like Texas. Yeehaw. Yeah. Yeah, I think it does. There we go. Shane says, is that, I think you mean thermal sailing. Yeah, so out here, all of the wind that we get in the summer is thermally generated. Our sort of general gradient wind direction is in the northwest, but it's all the wind we get here is because of the changing heat during the day and how that's responding to the mountains and the nature of the bay here. Shane says Bali in Indo is like that. So I've heard. Okay, Chris has got a recommendation. Look into the Zik or Zik. I think that's a Swiss brand. Super warm series. Good choice. Okay, Steve-O says, have you ever slept on a tornado, as that's the plan? All right, now, if you are thinking of buying a catamaran with the specific purpose of that boat to become something that you sleep on, you can't do better than a tornado. Reason is it's got a bigger trampoline than everything else in the sort of size class that we're talking about. So the tornado, brilliant boat for sleeping on. Also, the trampoline is flat, unlike perhaps a Hobie 18 or similar, where there's a bit of a curve to the trampoline. You don't want that curve if you're sleeping on it. For those of you who've slept on a Hobie 16, it's not quite as well, you wouldn't know because you've only slept on a 16. It's not as comfortable as having a flat trampoline. So there we go. Yeah, tornado, brilliant for sleeping on because of the size there. All right, Michael says Lake Michigan is hot and windy June to September. Nice. And then I think, is it absolutely freezing cold and windy the rest of the time? All right, we've got Rich, the cost of a dry suit. Buy a vacation holiday at Wildwind. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, dry suit is pretty, I don't know, I haven't even looked at the cost of a dry suit for about 25 years now, since I've started working here, strangely. And I'm pretty sure a dry suit would be something like 350 euros, maybe a bit more. But that actually brings me on to a question that I've got preloaded. All right, and this question is from, all right, I'm still looking for this question. Oh, this one's from Scott as well, who's got in touch through Patreon. He says, what do you get when you come out on a Wildwind holiday? That is a very good question. Okay, so, oh, Yasupano, Pano knows. He's been, yeah, so what we are, the main bulk of our guests that we have coming here are either coming from the UK, from Holland, from Germany, or from Sweden. And what we're doing for people coming from those countries is we're doing the complete package of flights, accommodation, and all the activities that you're going to be getting involved in. So I think if you're coming from the USA or from anywhere else in the world, then we could do a similar package, but it obviously wouldn't have the flights as well. You'd have to get your own flights, get here. And then we've got 2 hotels which are right on the beach, right next to the boat park. And then we've obviously got a fleet of, I think we've got about 60 or 70 boats in the fleet. And so you get unlimited sailing, unlimited use of all of those boats of course, conditions and experience are, how do I say this? Depending on your experience and the conditions. Like, for example, if you've never sailed a catamaran before, we're not perhaps going to let you take a tornado out in 30 knots of wind, because the boat's going to get destroyed, you're going to get injured, that kind of thing. We have to be sensible. But we offer very much unrestricted sailing. So we allow you to go sailing in a lot more wind than pretty much any other place in the world, because the bay where we sail is extremely safe. We've got full safety cover. So if you've done a lot of cat sailing, but you want to try perhaps sailing a Hobie Tiger in 30 knots of wind, then this is the place to try it, because we've got the facilities to bring you back if it doesn't go quite so well. So we've got full programs of instruction running every single week of the season at all levels, and depending on what type of sailing you want to focus on. We do a kids club as well, so if you've got kids, we'll basically take care of the kids for most of the day if you want us to, and that means that you can get on and enjoy your sailing while they're having probably a better time than you, who knows. But that is the kind of vibe that we're doing. We've also got stand-up paddle boards. We've got a fleet of mountain bikes as well, so you can get up early, go up a mountain before breakfast, that kind of thing. All right, that is pretty much what you get on a Wildwind holiday. Things that aren't included are, we don't include food or drinks, but we include a lovely time and the option to get suntan as well, which I think is very nice. All right, Shane says it's the top and bottom layer of the neoprene. Back to the wetsuit chat. Okay, Peter says, if you're sailing around the UK, bring a sat phone, a satellite phone. Very good suggestion. Communication is very important. Probably also get in touch with, I'm sure this is already covered, but get in touch with the local Coast Guard from all the different areas that you're going to be sailing through as well. Okay, we've got Dio on board. Oh, it's Chris. Dio is Christian, who we saw his Hobie 14 called Cuda. That was it. In, I think, was it Beaufort, USA? In Show Us Your Cat. He's added a trapeze to his Hobie 14 now. Hopes to send videos of the sea trials with the boat going sailing today. Oh, yes. All right. Have a great time. All right. Chris says, going to have to get yours way one day. Yeah, cool. That is obviously a bit of Texas chat. Yeah. That would be great when you get here. Panel says, don't forget the sunscreen. Steve-O says, can't wait to come back to Vassiliki. We miss it. Chris says Garmin InReach as well is a good tool. I think that must be another safety device if you're sailing around the UK on a tornado. Worth a look. All right, I've got some more preloaded questions. Oh, yes. All right, this one's from Tim in Florida, who has been a supporter of Joyrider TV since the start. And he says, during a pitchpole, did you see the pitchpole movie? I know it's filmed in portrait, not landscape, which immediately might make you think, what is going on here? It's for these new YouTube shorts videos, which have got to be under a minute long. But it's the idea of these videos is it reaches a lot more people than the normal videos. And what I'm trying to do is spread the word of what we're doing here with the Joyrider TV global community to as many people as possible, getting more people on board. That is what we're into, which is why I've started making these short videos. But I thought the pitchpole one was pretty cool. There was some good crashes in that. Tim says, during a pitchpole, while on the trapeze, should you try to unhook or just fly around the front of the boat like Peter Pan? That's a pretty good question. I would say once you know that you're going, I know that Tim sails a 16, and with a 16, because of the shape of the hull and the way that the deck is on the hull, once the deck of the boat goes under, you're pretty much done. You are going to pitch pole for sure. Whereas if you're on a boat which has more volume, like maybe you're sailing a Hobie 20 Miracle or an F18, just to which have got a lot more volume at the front, you can stick the deck under and the boat doesn't pitch pole. It is possible to save it. But if you're on the trapeze and you absolutely know that you're going, the best thing that you can do, making sure you haven't got ropes wrapped around your hands or your feet, is just very lightly boost away from the side of the boat. Just put a little bit of distance away between your feet and the side of the boat. And then that means you will swing round to the front of the boat. You'll land in the water in front of the boat. And we're not going to try to unhook mid-flight. It would be very difficult for a start. But the main reason we're not going to unhook mid-flight is because then when you land in the water, you've then got the trapeze line with you, which is going to give you the ability to get back to the boat. If you don't have the trapeze line with you, there is a chance that the boat is going to get away from you. And unless you're very quick to start swimming, you might not be able to catch up with the boat. So keep the trapeze with you. You're going to break the elastic, but that's okay. A lot of the time, if you've got fresh elastic on your trapeze wires, you can retie the elastic and get a second pitch pole out of one piece of elastic. So that's the only thing that's going to break. Okay, if you are on a boat which isn't necessarily going to pitch pole, like an F18, you stick the nose in and perhaps you're on the trapeze, then do what you can to not swing forwards. So really brace yourself. So that means bend the back leg, straighten the front leg, really brace yourself, because a lot of the time on the bigger boats, the nose goes in, and the reason the boat pitch poles is actually the weight of the people going forwards, which pulls the boat over. Okay, we've got Lil Farmer 07. Hi. He says he's sailed his 16 and had the deck go under and not pitch pole. Yeah, even with the 16, it depends on how fast you're going and what the circumstances are. If you're going down a wave, so maybe you're sat on the boat going down a wave, you stick the nose into the bottom of the wave, then there's a good chance that you'll save it if it's a wave-caused nosedive. Whereas if it's a wind-caused nosedive, then you're more likely to go. In my experience, that is. Anyway, we've got a bit more on the pitch poles. This is from Bernardo, who says, and he was not alone in saying this. He says he thought that easing, so if we're sailing on a broad reach, we're talking here, if you ease the sail, it moves the force forwards, making it easier to pitch pole. So he's saying, so don't let the sail out if you're sailing downwind. So firstly, we're talking sailing with two sails. If we're sailing with a spinnaker, this is a different chat we'll have later. But if we're sailing with two sails, most important is, before we go most important, if we turn this upside down and look at how to pitch pole on purpose. The way you pitch pole on purpose is by bearing away and at the same time sheeting in. That is going to put too much load on the bows, and by bearing away and sheeting in simultaneously, that is how you can pitch pole on purpose. should you want to. I know when I was 15 years old, I was pitch poling on purpose probably every time I went sailing because it's a lot of fun. Got it out of my system as well. So knowing that, does this sound like if we bear away and we don't ease the sail out, are we more likely to pitch pole than if we do ease the sail out? I say yes. If you bear away without easing the mainsail and preferably the jib as well, you are much, 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 much more likely to stick the nose in and flip your boat over. This is just how it is. Whatever the science says, I'm saying this from the experience of having done it literally thousands of times, both not pitch poling and pitch poling. So if you want to avoid the pitch pole when you're going downwind, you want to ease the sail out, turn more down. If you're on a broad reach, in fact, let's draw. We haven't drawn anything today, so let's. Here we go. There's the boat. There's the wind. There's the sail. There's another sail. All right. So if we're sailing downwind and we get hit by a gust of wind and it's all a bit like, whoa, then what we want to do is turn more downwind and at the same time just ease like an armful of sail out. By easing that amount of sail, that just takes the extra load off the bows and will stop you putting the bows under the water. If you do that bear away without easing sail, chances are you're going to put the front of the boat under the water. The only time when this isn't your the right course to take is if you get hit. If you're sailing along and you get hit by a really sharp gust, and by the time the gust hits you, the bows have already gone under and you can already see the tip of your windward rudder blade coming out of the water at the back, then in that situation, and only that situation, once the bows are already in, turn the boat the other way, hard, up towards the wind, easing sail. The reason we're easing sail there is because if we don't, we're then going to capsize sideways. So, but either way, you need to ease a bit of sail if you think you're going to pitch pole when sailing with two sails. Of course, the most easy way to prevent the pitch pole is by moving your weight back, but you do have to ease the sail. All right. So, beg your pardon, I should. Right, continuing. All right, we've got Dan Surf on board. Do you know what drone restrictions are there in Vassiliki? I'm pretty sure there are absolutely none at all. The nearest airport to us is about, 40 miles away. So there are no drone restrictions at all. The only restrictions would be if you fly your drone and it starts annoying people, they might start throwing things at it. That's all. But that is all. No restrictions. All right. Germans fan says, lucky you. Normally, you're doomed as soon as the nose sticks. Okay. And Robin says we're back on the dry suit, and this is Aqualung's Fusion dry suit is what I have. It's made for diving, but perfect for sailing because it has a WP inner layer with a stretchy outer, keeps you dry with no flapping. And it kept Robin warm when she was in Washington State. There you go. There's one to check out straight away. Germans fan says, what is your preferred way to train righting the boat with a fresh crew? If you're just going out once, if like say you're just taking somebody out for a sail on a day and they're not going to be sailing with you every day, or I think even if they are, rather than actually going through a capsize drill every time you take someone new out. Instead, you should just explain to them what are the important things if you capsize. So number one is, if you capsize, stay with the boat. And make sure you've always got a hand on the boat. Second most important thing with the capsize, as we know, if here's our boat on its side, here's the hulls. Yeah, that's a good picture. All right, there's the hulls, and there is the water. So, number one, don't let go of the boat. Make sure you're holding on to a part of the boat. Number two is, if you end up in this space here, next to the trampoline, just get out from that space as quickly as you can, and then point out to them what the best escape routes are from there. So if they're behind the shroud, go to the back. If they're in front of the shroud, go to the front. And I would say those are the main points of telling a new crew what to do in the event of a capsize. If you're sailing in strong winds and you're reaching and there is the chance of a pitch pole while you're on the trapeze, it is worth pointing out what to do in that case. If you're about to pitch pole, just make sure, keep an eye on them, make sure they haven't got a rope wrapped around the hands or the feet, and tell them, if we stick the nose in and the boat suddenly stops, you'll feel like you're going to get thrown forwards. If that is going to happen, just boost a little bit away from the boat, go with it, and we'll have a lovely flight. And that is the advice I'd give somebody if I was taking them out for the first time. Okay, Jonathan's on board. Hi there. Last summer, I tried to replace my Hobie 16 frame and found the pinholes on the replacement parts don't line up with my pontoons by about 1/4 inch. Any experience with that problem? Yeah, we have had boats that don't line up so well in the past. Yeah, it's a tricky one, that. Possibly, I don't know. What I would do is I would see about what the method would be to get the holes in the pylons, the bits going up, how you'd go about getting those holes filled in. So get those completely filled, like maybe actually get the hole in that welded closed again, and then drill fresh holes through. It's quite extreme, but if it's not lining up, then that could be the only way to sort it out. We have had boats come from the factory before, it was a long time ago, where no matter what we did, the holes just didn't line up. So we did end up having to run a drill through it. But then after that, the boat was very stiff. And if you consider what the hole is doing, all the hole is there to do on that sort of boat is to stop the casting. So if this is the casting and this is the pylon here, and we've got the hole here which the bolt goes through, the only purpose of that is to stop this from lifting off that. So if the hole is a little bit longer than how it's intended, then I don't think it's quite the end of the. It's not the end of the world. If it's longer that way, then that will be more of an issue, because then it will move up and down. But that's what I would say in my experience. German's fan says on this topic, the pinholes are drilled as pairs by the company. Oh, there you go. He says he's heard that you have to re-drill them if you use another pair. All right. So no more questions, please. We've been going over an hour now. I'm just going to do the rest, go through the rest of the preloaded questions. Did we have Flupser-ups here. I think it was, oh yes, he is here. He was here at the start. He says, what is a cheap way to get somewhere to store your boat about 3 meters in length? That really, that question really does ask about your situation, where it is that you are and what is near to you. But if you're intending on using your boat, the best place to store your boat will always be the nearest sailing club, or the sailing club that's nearest where they sail similar boats to the one that you sail. That's always going to be the best storage solution. But if your boat is only 3 meters long and you're looking for like winter storage for your boat, there are, I think, around most major cities in the world, there are companies that do storage for things of that sort of size. Like, I think they're almost like shipping containers, like 20 feet long, which would be easily long enough to get the boat in. And there, you know, she'll be safe until next time you come to use it. There we go. Okay, and the last question. Oh no, I've got more. All right, next one from Kurosh in Dubai. He's asking, could I just go through lifting the dagger boards on a boat with dagger boards in stronger wind? Yes. All right, so we went through this last week, dagger board positions, the general dagger board positions. Upwind, you have them both down. Downwind, you have them both up, so that there is the same amount under the boat. Here we go. Are we seeing this? Yes, we are. So this is the downwind dagger board position. Look at that hull shape. So we've got the same amount under the boat as the amount of rudder. Yeah. Okay, so that's our downwind dagger board position. Then if it's really windy and we're wanting to have the dagger boards help us deal with that amount of wind, we can just, apart from on the downwind point of sail, this is as far up as we'll ever put them. So if we put it any higher, then it's not going to be fitting in the slot correctly, because on most boats, that is where the curve in the dagger board will probably start. So if we take it any further, then the dagger board's not actually going to fit in the slot correctly, so it might move around. And if you capsize, it's very likely to come out altogether. So that is the most we'd ever bring the dagger board up. But if it's a really strong wind, on the other points of sail, just bring the dagger board up as much as you feel that you need, with this amount being the most. When I go Tiger or F-18 sailing here in the summer, and I'm not sailing in a racing situation and it's maybe 25 knots of wind, I put the dagger boards up to the downwind position for the entirety of the time out. I never put them down all the way. It makes the boat handle so much easier that it is a massive difference. Of course, if you're on the race course, you do want to put them down a bit for going upwind, but on all other points of sail, put them up to the downwind mark. Okay. All right, and I think this is the last preloaded question from Willem. He says, my brother hired a Hobie 16 on holiday. Coming from dinghy sailing, he said the Hobie felt like it was on rails, which I suppose it kind of is, having the two hulls, keeping it very straight in the water. But he said it actually meant that it doesn't turn well. Is that common among catamarans, or just catamarans with a skeg hull? That is common with all catamarans. Well, most catamarans. There are some which are more maneuverable than others, and that does largely depend on the hull shape. So in fact, let's a bit darker. So the Hobie 16 hull shape, if we look at how much hull is in the water, generally, because the Hobie 16 or Prindle 15, Prindle 16, anything with this asymmetric hull shape, the water would probably come up quite high, which means you've got quite a lot of hull in the water, and that is going to be quite a lot of resistance when you want to turn. If we've got a boat with more of a symmetrical hull, this could have a skeg or a centerboard, but more likely with a centerboard, then the water is going to be, we're going to have much less hull in the water, making the boat a lot easier to turn. If, of course, we've got this sort of hull shape, but with a skeg hull, that's an exaggerated skeg hull, then we've got a lot more resistance when we want to turn. But with the catamarans, the maneuvering of the catamarans isn't that it's not possible, like with the tacking, for example, which is where most people struggle, especially if they're not used to it. It just requires a different technique to sailing a monohull. If you enter a tack in a catamaran with zero technique, just thinking I'll just slam the rudders over, off we go, you're probably not going to succeed. So you do need some technique. Okay, the other shape of hull, and this is quite a modern shape that we're seeing more and more these days. This is like this. You may be thinking, what on earth is that? Okay, this would be the hull shape on an FX1 on a lot of the modern Formula 18 boats, like the C2, the new Goodall design Acura. Can't wait to have a go on one of those. On most of the Nacras. So the boat is completely flat on the bottom. This is what's going to blow your mind, is how much boat sits in the water. Almost none. And that is why the boats with those shaped hulls are much, much more twitchy than the other shaped hulls. And they'll tack easily as well. On, like, for example, on Steve-O's FX1, you could tack that, if he'll let you take it out, of course. You can tack that boat with zero technique, as if it was a monohull, because there is no resistance coming from the hulls. And the same goes for a C2 or a modern F18 shape. All right, it seems like there's been a bit of chat going on here. Just going to check in. Yeah, so there's the answer in the manoeuvrability of the catamaran. Okay, Jonathan says he figured they were drilled as pairs. He's going to go for the re-drilling or salvage the castings, as the old ones are fine. Okay, German's fan says just drill off the head, tap out the rivets, the inside, don't knock the head off with a chisel, or you could break your casting. All right, cool, thanks. Practice on the spare castings. All right, Lil Farmer 07 says his dad's got a 1955 Highlander sailboat. Sweet. All right, Ian says, P.S. you can see the dry suit on Show Us Your Cat. Can't remember the episode. Oh yeah, I think that was Ian who was sailing the very small, I can't remember what the boat was called, but the very small monohull when the water was actually becoming ice on the deck. That is definitely when you wouldn't even consider going out without a dry suit on. Thanks for that. Frosty, a Cape Cod Frosty, was it? Yes, my goodness, we featured some cold sailing this year on Show Us Your Cat. Anyway, I think that takes us up to that'll do for today. So thanks very much for tuning in. If you are going to watch this later on, I'm going to index all of the questions. So if you are watching it later, you can just have a look at the index, see when all of the different questions were addressed, and that way you can skip to that part of the video. But thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for your questions, and thanks for your continued support of the Joyrider TV channel here. And I'm gonna write this down now. Make a video about the quick release hook. All right. Have a nice week, Germans fan. And Chris has sent me a message. All right. We'll check that out. And yeah, see you soon. Stay safe out there. If you're going sailing, take a GPS and let me know how you get on. Thank you very much.